I have enabled.
It's visible, right? Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Professor Anirudh Chakrabarti from IIM Graduate School of Management. So I, along with my colleague, Dr. Kumar Saurabh, I'm going to take this session for an hour, around 40 minutes. And we are going to tell you basically how to master the management aptitude test, which is now going to be held in July. So the way we're going to do this session is very simple. We are going to have a short session of around 40 minutes, in which I'll tell you a bit about the exam, what MAT is all about, how does it differ from CAT, which is also another famous aptitude test that most of you would have given. And I'll also be taking you through a few of the sections. So I'll tell you what are these sections each about, how you can design a strategy to master each of these sections. And towards the end, I will then, the last 15-20 minutes, I will basically be handing it over to my colleague, Dr. Saurabh, who will be taking you to a very nice way of doing a particular section, which is the quantitative section, which is, a section all of us are a bit scared of many a times. But he'll tell you certain tricks of the trade, which will help you to really sail through that particular section. Right. So a bit about both of us. So my name is, as I've said, I am Professor Anirudh. I am a faculty in operations in IIM Graduate School of Management. I am an alumnus of IIM Bangalore, batch of 97. Much before that, I've also done my graduation in the University of Lucknow, and I did it in pure arts. So I had economics and not pure arts because I also had statistics a bit, but I majored in economics out there. And I'm not an engineer, but I was able to make it through CAT and get into one of the best management colleges in India. Right. So when I'm talking about this particular exam, I will also share my perspectives with you, how exams of these types are and how you can typically master them if you just know your strengths and if you prepare properly. Right. So my colleague, Dr. Saurabh, is an alumnus of the prestigious NIT Allahabad. So I would request Dr. Saurabh to say a few lines, please.
Hi, good afternoon all. I'm Dr. Kumar Saurabh. I did my PhD from NIT Allahabad, and I'm at present faculty over in the area of finance at IIM Greater Noida. Welcome you all, and hope you will get something as a takeaway for your MAT exam from this session.
Thank you so much,
Sir.
sir. Thank you so much. So without much ado, let's start by trying to understand what this exam is all about. Right. So M stands for Management Aptitude Test. This is conducted by a body called IMA, which is the All India Management Association. Right. I'm rushing through this slide because many of you know what IMA is, since you would have already enrolled for this particular test. Now the MAT scores is accepted by around 600 business schools in India. Right. So the good thing about this score is when you give this exam, you have a single passport to so many management colleges. Like when I did my management way back in 97, I had to apply individually to the IIMs, to the Bombay colleges, to many of these Delhi colleges. So that really adds up to your cost, and it also adds up in terms of headache, because you have to prepare differently for different kind of exams. Now these days, I mean, with MAT, you have a certain standardization. Now, traditionally, whenever we talk about the MAT is typically done in two ways. You have something called a paper-based test and something called a computer-based test, right? But this year, because of the coronavirus and the complications which have arisen because of that, they have a new format which is called IBT, which is called the internet-based test, right? Now, what you need to do right away after you do this, this workshop or this webinar, is that you need to go to the IMA site, the MAT site, and you need to enroll for something called a mock IBT test, right? Which is of around 3 hours duration, and they'll give you a certain window wherein you can go and give this test. So I have given this test. Now, why it is necessary for you to give the mock IBT is, that IBT is a bit different from your normal CBT or PBT. So in a CBT, typically you have a terminal in front of you, right? You are given a piece of paper. There's an invigilator in the room, right? All those things are there. So there's a certain touch and feel about that particular test. Now in the IBT, you will be doing it from your homes. Now when you're doing it from your homes, there'll be a lot of constraints. The biggest constraint would be bandwidth, because internet speed, especially if you're staying in the hinterland, if you're staying, in the interiors of India, the bandwidth could be a bit of a problem, right? There also, IMA has specified certain system specifications, how much your RAM should be, what kind of a camera you need to have. And they're also tracking you when you're giving this IBT in the form of They're using some amount of artificial intelligence, right? So they're tracking how you're giving that particular exam. So the experience while you give the IBT will be a bit different from what it would have been if had you given a typical PBT or CBT, though the test would largely be the same. So for the experience part, I would recommend that all of you please give the mock IBT, which is available. The link is available on the MAT site. You can just connect there. You can just register. You need to pay a nominal 100 rupees, and they will send you a time slot when you can give the exam. Now, coming to the exam has a duration of 2 hours 30 minutes, right? And it's multiple choice questions. So you have a question, you have 4 options. You have to select the option which is closest to the right answer, right? There is negative marking. I think it is 0.25 per question for every wrong answer that you get. And there are 4 sections. There's language comprehension, there's mathematical skills, there is data analysis and sufficiency, and critical reasoning, which actually form your MAT percentile, right? There's also a paper that you have to give on Indian and global environment. Now, this is not really counted in your MAT score, but you have to you have to basically pass this course or this particular paper, or do reasonably well. So they're wanting to check how aware you are of your surroundings, of the business environment and stuff like that. But this does not go into your final score. It is just a qualifying kind of thing. So that's about the MAT, right? I'm sure most of you knew all of this already, right? And also, once we are done with the PPT after 40 minutes, we have kept a 20-minute window where you can actually ask questions to us, right? So we'll try to answer it to the best of our abilities, given what we have encountered in the past, whatever we know about this particular examination, right? And you can also reach out to us after this particular event gets over, right? So you'll get the contact details from us. So you can reach out to us both for the kind of questions you have, and also if you need any help with preparing for the MAT exam, because you have some time still for the MAT exam. Now, without really talking too much, I mean, if you talk about the MAT and if you talk about the CAT, we need to understand how they differ. Both of them are aptitude tests. Both of them are management aptitude tests. Right? Both of them have more or less the four. Both of them are basically checking you on in terms of verbal ability. They're checking you in terms of verbal reasoning. They're looking at your critical analytical skills. They're looking at how good you are with quants and how good you are with understanding and interpreting data. So both these exams are broadly testing you on these 4 parameters. But there's a very essential difference in the way these 2 exams are conducted. So if you see, the level of difficulty for the MAT is not very high. Unlike a CAT, which is a very difficult exam. I mean, if you have to prepare for the CAT in 1 month, it's not possible. It takes around easily 5 to 6 months for you to be able to do a good preparation for CAT. I mean, people who are serious these days typically enroll 2 years before the exam. There are many people who do that. If you look at Time and all these kind of coaching institutes, they have programs which run for 18 months, right? So there's some reason behind it, because it's a very rigorous kind of thing. A lot of concepts go into it, right? So it takes a time to build those concepts. Whereas the MAT is a more basic exam. If you talk of the quant part, it is not more than your class 10 level maths, right? The DI is also pretty straightforward, right? But how it differs basically is, it differs in terms of the kind of questions they ask, right? So CAT is looking more at your IQ. It's looking at how good you are in unstructured problem solving, for instance, right? How good you are with ambiguity. Whereas the MAT is not about ambiguity. The MAT is asking you direct questions, but you need to be fast, right? You need to be comfortable with large numbers, especially when you work with DI or quant kind of problems, right? So you will see large numbers, 7-digit numbers, 8-digit numbers. You have to find the ratios. You have to compare ratios of large numbers, and you have to do it pretty fast because time is a constraint. 200 questions in 2 hours 30 minutes is not very easy, right? So that's one level of differentiation between 2 tests. That's basically the level of difficulty that these two tests are basically about. The second difference of the CAT and the MAT is, if you give the CAT, you have to clear individual sections, right? So every section has a cutoff, right? So for example, language will be having a cutoff, numerical ability will be having a cutoff, all of these sections will be having a cutoff, right? Also, each of these questions are timed. I mean, necessarily you have to spend 30 minutes in each section. So suppose you are giving language part and you finish in 20 minutes, you cannot move to the next section. You have to wait there and then only you can move. And vice versa, if you have skipped some part and moved to another section, you cannot come back to that section later, right? On the other hand, math is a more traditional test, right? So for instance, if you are good in quant, you focus on quant, you maximize your score there, right? You spend more time in quant. That is how I gave my cat exam way back in 97, right? Because then they did not have this time limit thing. So I was good in, certain parts of quant and certain parts of, language ability. So I maximized my scores there, and I knew my weaknesses, and I just basically sailed. I didn't spend too much time there. That's how I took that particular test, and I got through B and I got through L, which is a pretty decent effort, I think, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. So in the math, the beauty of the test is you are not forced to spend a certain amount of time in a section. You can do a you can do a certain amount of time of work there, and then move to your strength and try to maximize your score there, right? Okay. The next is some tips before we basically move to the sections, right? So first is know your strength. Now, broadly, I've told you the four sections. Now, it's very rare that someone will be excellent in English also, excellent in comprehension also, excellent in DI also. There are people of those sort, but they're a very small percentile, right? If I talk of my batch of IIM Bangalore, in a class of 206 at IIM Bangalore, maybe 10 or 12 students had that kind of ability, who were good in everything, right? Most of us typically are good in one skill or maybe two skills. The challenge is to know what we are good at, right? So are we good in numbers? Are we good in language? So in my case, I was very, since I read a lot of books, right? That's one strength I have. Even now, I read at least one book a week, right? So I read a lot of books. So reading is something which does not scare me, right? So my strength was comprehension. So I'm sure in the comprehension part, when I gave the CAT that year, I must have scored almost 100% there, right? But I'm not so good in quant. I'm better than most, but when you compare with the IIT engineer and all, I would be way behind. So I did not really spend too much time there. I did what I knew. Out of maybe 50 questions, I did 25 or 26. Then I moved to my area of strength. The same thing is what you need to understand. You still have some time. Think what is your strength, especially if you have not done some coaching or some preparation, right? It makes sense for you to think what is your strength. Is language your strength or is quant your strength? And then you try to optimize your score, right? Then have a strategy in place. How much time will you spend in each section? Will you spend 40 minutes in quant? Will you spend 50 minutes in quant? Again, that is linked to your strength. What is your strength? The third and most important, and this is where I think Dr. Saurabh's session will be so important for most of you, is don't guess. Don't guess wildly, right? I've seen people who just make a pattern when they give the exam. They start from one end, they do this, they come like this, they come like this, right? That's a random problem solving. I've seen people giving CAT that way. Obviously, they don't succeed, right? Because there's a very small probability of getting a good score that way. No examiner would make a paper that way, right? But don't guess, but do intelligent guessing, and that is what Dr. Saurabh's session will be all about. How you can look at answers and get the right answer without really having to solve. How can you employ shortcuts, right? That so I will not steal his baby. That's his area. So he's a quant guru in our campus, right? We call him the quant guru. He's the finance and quant whiz kid of our campus. So he's going to tell you all that, right? Okay, don't spend too much time in one section, right? Like I said, I mean, if you're not good in language, just try to do your basic minimum. Move to your strength. Capitalize on your strength. This is the difference in CAT from the math, right? So in math, you can have that prerogative. You can prioritize your performance, which is something you cannot do in the CAT, right? Okay, now let's look at the individual sections, because I also want to leave a sufficient amount of time for Dr. Saurabh. The first section is English ability. Unfortunately, even after so many years of independence, English is still a very important language for us, right? Most of the business communication takes place in English, and that's why this language is still having such a big role in our lives, right? Unfortunately, most of these exams, math, cat, they put a lot of stress on English ability and also English reasoning. If you talk about cat, it's more about verbal reasoning. If you talk about math, it is more about verbal ability, right? So if you talk about verbal ability, what typically goes into that? So you should be knowing the meaning of certain words, right? Like if I tell you what's the meaning of the word preposterous, you should be knowing that. You should not only be knowing that meaning, you should also be knowing what are the synonyms, What are the words similar to that? What are the words, opposite in meaning to that, right? And what are the kind of situations where you can use that word typically? Where is it right? Where is it wrong? Right? So how do you build it? I mean, if you have 1 month, how can you build a reasonable vocabulary? One way of doing it, and this is one advantage that you internet kids have, which we did not have when we were your age, is you have a lot of these standard word lists on the net, right? So I've given one, right? So this is the 30 most important IELTS, 300 most important IELTS vocabulary list. Now IELTS is a test for testing English, right? Now if IELTS considers those 300 words very important, there is a high probability that these words will also be picked up by Mac, right? So if you know the meanings of these words, if you know the synonyms and all that, then there's a high probability that you will come across words, in the exam, which you will know, right? There are also other lists, 1,000 words, 2,000 words, 5,000 words, depending on how much time and how much importance you want to give this section. Because once again, I'm saying don't try to create a wheel, right? If you are average in English, you will not become excellent in 1 month. You'll not become that, right? Even if you study for the next 24 hours, next 1 month English, I mean, if you have a certain constraint in English, it's going to remain, right? It's going to remain. I mean, it's with me even after so many years, right? Even I mean, I'm not great in English, but I've mastered a few of my callings. You can say that, right? But life will teach you certain things, but certain things are there, right? Is the way you are. So, but you can do some things. There are certain words that you should know, right? And as I said, math is not a very difficult exam, so they're not going to ask you words which are very difficult, right? They're not they'll not ask you the meanings of words like soporific and all, right, which are very classical English words. These would be typical business English terms, which you would be getting in most of the word lists. So look at a proper word list, look at a standard word list, look at a TOEFL word list or an IELTS word list. Look at those words, what they mean, master it, and master the math, right? The next part is grammar. Look at some basic prepositions, because in the math they also ask you many of these questions where you have to correct sentences, right? So I went at school, for instance, right? So the mistake is I went to school. So you should be knowing what prepositions are, where are they used, right? Similarly, you should be knowing grammar, what is simple tense, what is past tense, what is past perfect, right? I will have done something if it is something in the future. I would have done something had it been in the past, right? So all those kind of things you should be knowing, right? And many a times, if you read a lot, if you typically are that kind of person, you will look at sentences and you can understand where the mistake lies, right? But again, grammar is something I will tell you, of the two, if you tell me word lists and grammars, I will tell you to focus more on word list, because grammar in 1 month again is a bit tough. It's very tough, right? I mean, it takes a lot of time to build up grammar principles. Now the third part in the English ability part is comprehension. And this is, I think, where you can actually do better than the remaining two, right? Because word lists, even if you mug up lists, there's a certain probability that something may come outside that, right? Grammar also is something, like I said, it's not something that you can master in a month, but you can understand the basics. And if something comes from there, you can answer, right? But comprehension, all that you need to do the next 1 month is open the newspaper every day. Okay, the newspaper is not coming because of the virus these days. Open an online newspaper, right? Subscribe to an online newspaper, and you read the editorial page diligently for 1 month, right? Now, this is going to help you in 2 or 3 ways. Let me see the time. Okay, we have another 15 minutes, sir. Saurabh, sir, another 15 minutes. Is it fine? Okay. Right. So if you look at the editorial, you will see there are articles which are coming from across topics. You will see articles from science. You will see articles from the sporting world. You will see articles from economics. You will see articles from management, right? So all from the business world. And that's really the kind of passages you'll be getting in the comprehension part. You will not be getting articles only from business. No, so that's where people get scared. They open the comprehension part and they see a scientific article there, right? Maybe some study on anthropology, maybe some study on physics, right? Now, they're not trying to test your knowledge in physics or anthropology. They're not trying to do that. What they're trying to see is, can you read a passage, right, which will be outside your comfort zone many a times, and are you able to understand the meaning of that article and answer a few basic questions. That's what comprehension is all about. Right now, how can you build the skill? Very simply, 1 month, read the paper every day and read a variety of articles. You will get there. I'm telling you. That's all I did. Right. All I've done practically before the cat was I gave a few mock tests and I read the paper every day. That was sufficient for an exam like cat. I'm sure this will work for an exam like MAT also, right? So, like I said, comprehension is all about reading a passage and getting to the crux of the matter. What is it that the writer is trying to say? What is it that the author is trying to say? Right? What is the drift of the article? Is it positive? Is it negative? What is the mood of the writer? So all these things you should be able to understand, right? What is he trying to infer? What is he trying to say? What is he trying to forecast? Right? There are some things which are left unsaid in an article, right? So you should be having that knack of trying to or being able to pick up what is it that the writer has said unsaid. Many a times those kind of questions are also asked, but it is something you can develop over 1 month, right? Unlike grammar, which is not such a easy it's just not a piece of cake, frankly. Grammar is quite difficult. I mean, if you want to master grammar, it will take some more time, and it will take a lot of time in terms of activity also, which you can spend better. Since you only have 1 month, you also need to see where your time can be spent better, right? So I would say practice comprehension. Very simply, take the paper, devote 1 hour in the morning every day, read the editorial page, and try to understand articles. That's it. And if you see any difficult word somewhere, write it down, see the meaning. That will also help you in part 1, right? So that's the English ability part. The second part I'm trying to talk about is DI and data sufficiency. I will run through this because I'm not really trying to solve problems out here. That is something which is the specialty of my colleague, right? And I will leave it to that. But I'm telling you, DI kind of problems. Again, DI is my strength area, right? Because I've also taken some guest sessions at time and all for DI, right? So DI problems can be done in several ways, right? There are several DI problems for which you don't need to solve at all, which can be solved by visualization, by looking at the problem, right? Like if this in this question, if you see, it's a simple table. You see years 2015, 16 up to 2020, and you see the output of a product which is rice in tons, right? Now, if you see in which year the growth was maximum, right? One way of doing it is the hard way, which is you find the difference for each year and you divide it by the previous year and get the percentage, right? But that will involve how many calculations? 2015, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20. So you are talking of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to take you a lot of time, right? Now, so my question is, in which year the growth was maximum, right? So if you look 2015 to 16, there's a growth of around 700 tons, 612 tons to be exact, right? 2017, it actually dipped, right? So there's no point finding the growth rate from 2016 to 2017 because there was not a growth, it was a degrowth, right? So you can automatically remove that from the question, right? Now look at the first one. The first one is a growth of 600 on 11 on 11288. Now Saurabh is going to tell you how you can reduce large numbers into smaller numbers. If you see, we have had a growth of 612 over 11,288. Now if you divide both by 100, what do you get? You get 6.12 by 112.88. 112.88 can be 113. The denominator is 6.13, right? So that's the first. So without really trying to calculate, you just see 6.13 by 113. Look at the remaining numbers. Look at 2018. Like I said, 2017 you discard. 2017 is 300 over a larger number. So you discard that. Look at 2019, 400 over a larger number, right? Look at 2016, 500 over a larger number. So it is obvious that 2016 you have had the largest growth without really having done any work. It is just something you have looked at the data and you have got the answer. How many years have shown negative growth? You can see it is increasing trend throughout. Only 1 year the numbers are dipping, which is 2017. Growth in 2016 was more than the growth in 2020 by what percentage? Here you can use the shortcuts that Dr. Saurabh will tell you how you can find a growth using shortcuts, right? Which I just introduced, but he will take it in much greater detail, right? So you can use these kind of techniques to solve these problems very fast because the problem of DI problems can be very cumbersome, right? The MAT exam will not give you a simple problem like this. It will not be a 5-digit number. It will be a 10-digit number or 11-digit number. It will be a number in crores, right? And one number may be in lakhs, one number may be in crores. If you divide a 5-digit by 7-digit, 3-digit by 7, you'll get complicated. You'll get clustered. I'm telling you, right? So unless you use certain smart tricks, this is a section which can often be a death knell for many people taking this particular test. Okay, going ahead, this is a second kind of table. I will not solve it, right? But I'm just trying to tell you it's a different table in the sense that now you have data in two tables. So the first data is basically talking of year and output of grains, right? The second is telling you percentage of a particular year in terms of, like, this is food grains, right? Now food grains comprises of these three kind of products, right? So if you see, if 100 tons were produced in 2018, 48% was this, 27% was this, and 25% of this. So you basically have to combine two tables to answer your question. So if you look at the first question, what has been the absolute decline in rice production? If you see, rice production has declined from 48% to 33%, right? But you're talking about absolute, not percentage. How do you find the absolute number? 11288 into 48% minus 12,700 into 33%, right? It may not be a decline at the end of it. Maybe you will see it's a growth, right? Because the volume has grown. That is something you need to see, right? You need to find out and see, right? So again, these kind of questions can be of two types. It can be a simple table and they may ask you questions. It may be a complex table where you have two tables and you have to combine the knowledge of two tables. This can also be given to you in the form of a pie chart, right? Okay, so that's DI. So once again, DI, you need to be smart. You need to employ the tactics that Dr. Saurabh will tell you, right? Another part of DI is where they talk about data sufficiency. So in data sufficiency, you basically look at, there'll be some statements given to you, and you have to look at those statements and tell if you can answer the question or not, right? Is the data sufficient? For example, if you look at the first one, the sum of two ages is given and the difference of two ages is given. From this information, can the individual ages be computed, right? It can be computed because sum is nothing plus A plus B. So A plus B is 64, A minus B is 24, right? Isn't it? So A plus B is 64, A minus B is 24. You can just solve it as a simple equation, get a value of A, get a value of B, right? But on the other hand, had this been like this, sum of the ages is 64 and sum of their squares of ages is this, right? Then it would be difficult for you to solve it because you have two variables, A and B, right? Look at the second one. The sides of a right triangle are 5, 12, and 13. Can the area of the triangle be computed? It can be, because the area of the triangle is half base into altitude. The base is 12, the altitude is 13, right? So you can find the area. But on the other hand, had the question be like this, that the sides of a triangle are 5, 12, and 6, right? Can the area of the triangle be computed? It cannot, because you know from a basic rule of geometry that the sum of two sides, right, has to be more than the third one. So if the third is not 6, had it been say 19, right, then you could not find the area, because if you add these two, you get 12, 17. The third is 19, so 17 is less than 19, which is actually running contrary to a basic rule of geometry. So these kind of questions are basically that you need to look at information. You need to look at that information, analyze that information, and say if you can answer a certain problem or a certain question basis what you have provided. So this is a very direct implication for you as a manager, because that's what you'll do when you all become managers, because you will be looking at data and you'll be basically trying to come to inferences. Very often the data may not be complete. The data may be partial, and you have to see if you can answer questions or not, right? So that's the DI and sufficiency part. Very quickly, critical reasoning is the third part, and the quant part, and I leave to my colleague. In critical reasoning, typically you have games. So you may be having card games, you may be having dice games, you may be having games like four people playing a game, two winning something. Those kind of problems you can have. You can be having puzzles. You can be having relationships like A is the father of B, B is the father of say C, whatever. Those kind of, what is the relation between A and C? Those kind of problems, right? Then you have syllology. I'll just tell you syllology what it is later on. And you can have problems on number series. Number series problems come a lot in math. Sorry, you won't see them so much in CAT. CAT is more about games and puzzles. probability, those kind of problems, right? Whereas math is more about number series. Number series, you need to have some basic concepts of maths. Like if you look at the first one, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, which is the next one? These are all squares. 1 is the square of 1, 4 is the square of 2, 3 is the 9 is the square of 3, 16 is the square of 4, 25 is 5 square, 36 is 6 square, which is the next one. If you look at the next one, 0 to 6, 12, 12, 20, this is again very simple. It is now it is the number, right? The square minus the number. So the first is 1 minus 1, 0. Second is 2 square minus 2. Third is 3 square minus 3. Fourth is 4 square minus 4. Fifth is 5 square minus 5, and so on. So sixth would be 6 square minus 6. 36 minus 36 is 30, right? 1, 2, 3, 5 is a typical Fibonacci series, right? So some of these series you should be knowing. In this, basically, for example, 3 is 2 plus 1, 5 is 3 plus 2, 8 is 5 plus 3, 13 is 8 plus 5, 21 is 13 plus 8. So next would be 21 plus 13 and so on, right? So how you can prepare for this? You look at AP series, what are AP series, what are GP series, right? Again, you'll get a lot of material on the net. You can also reach out to us because, we also train our PG students on these kind of things because many companies have these kind of tests, when they come to our campus for recruitment. So we have a very large, question bank with us on campus. So you can reach out to ILM Greater Noida, after this thing, and we can help you in your preparation for math, right? The last 2, 3 things, and then I leave it to my friend. So if you see, this is a syllogistic kind of thing. Syllogy is nothing but logical reasoning. If all men are boys, which is right? All boys are men, or some boys are men, right? So most people will say all boys are men, right? But that is not right, because if all men are boys, that means that men is basically a subset of boys, right? That also means that some boys are not men, right? So only thing that you can infer is some boys are men and some boys are not men, right? If some boys are men, then you cannot say, right? You don't know which. So some men are boys cannot be inferred, right? It cannot be said that, right? So whenever you have, so this is the basic rule of syllology, right? Again, you need to practice this. You need to look at more problems of this type because these do come in math. If I look at the math critical reasoning paper, right, you will find a lot of questions which are number series questions and which are syllology kind of questions. If you practice, you can easily get them, right? So that's all. That's all my part. That's all the part that I want to talk about. We'll also be having more sessions. So every week we'll be sending you one link. The remaining ones will be more detailed. So we'll talk in more detail about DIA and stuff like that. So over to my friend now, Dr. Saurabh. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Now comes the quantitative techniques part, which generally, if I interact with any of the students, they are generally scared of quants. They are scared of numbers, even though they want to be in business. And in business, let it be finance, let it be marketing, operation, or even in HR, you have to deal with lots of numbers. So first and foremost thing is, don't be scared of numbers. They are your friends. They are there to help you. They are there to design your strategies for your business. So, and to one thing which comes for our rescue in CAT or MAT, we don't actually need to solve the whole problem. We can just apply few tricks and reach to the exact answer because we have to just tick mark. So please next slide. It is just a small example what Anuj sir was explaining in his DI part. That suppose we came across a multiplication where it is just a 4-digit multiplied by 3-digit. It could be 5-digit or 7-digit multiplied by 8 or 9-digit, but trick remains same. In conventional method, what we will do, we multiply 4, 3, 2, 6 initially with 7, then with 9, then again with 9, and then sum up all these three things, right? Whatever came, whatever the answer came. So please next slide. It is the conventional method. Instead, if we came across a trick, how we can solve it more quickly. So just look at the number. It is 997, means 1000 minus 3. Multiplying any number with 1000 means just add 30 to that number. And now that if if we are solving it with conventional method, we have to multiply our 4, 3, 2, 6 with 9, 9 and 7. Now we have to multiply it with just 7, just 3, and now subtract it. So earlier the problem was 3 multiplication plus 1 addition. Now it had been converted into just one multiplication and a subtraction. So by this we can easily reach out to the answers, right? Next question. Now, look at the division. It is 2591.97 divided by 36.03 square. Conventionally, if we will go, what we will do, we will identify the 36 square of 36.03. So we will reach out to be somewhere around 1297 point something. Then we will divide 2591.97. So it is a very cumbersome process. It will take more than 1 minute. Instead of that, please remember, in your math you will be having 200 question and time allotted is just 150 minutes, so less than 1 minute for each question. And these are very simple questions. If you will spend a lot of time on these kind of questions, you will not be able to solve the whole paper, and it will be a problem. So instead of doing it on conventional method, just use approximation method. We can convert 2591.97 to 2592, just an approximate number, very close by. Then 36.03 to 36, just 36. So square of 36, we know it is 1296. So 2592 is double of 1296. We get 2. Now look at the answers. So please 2 slides back. Now look at the answer. There is no 2, but first two options are very close by, 1.9966 and 2.0137. Remember, we have increased the numerator. It was 2591.97 and we have increased it to 2592. Means it is a bit higher. So actual result will be slightly lesser than 2. Again, look at the numerator. It is 36.03 and we have approximated that to 36. Means actual denominator is a bit higher than the what we had approximated. So answer should be slightly lesser than 2. So just looking at the answer, I can select option A as the right answer, right? So these are few small tricks. Now next comes the 77% of 64. Conventionally, if I have to do, I will multiply 77 with 64, divide by 100, and we will reach the answer. But we can use approximation, and as well as we doubling and halving anything is quite easier. So 77 we can split it into 50% plus 25% plus 2%. So half of that is 50% of 64, that is half, just 64 by 2, that is 32. Half of that is 25%, means half of 32, that is 16. 1% will be 0.64, so 2% will be double of that, 1.28. So 77% of 64 will be 32 plus 16 plus double of 0.64, that turns out to be 49.28. So these are few small tricks in which you have to do lot of practice, and by practicing itself you can reduce your time, and you can gain a lot of leverage on these few tricks during your exams. Now come to the compound interest, a very simple example which anyone can solve, but when it comes to solving it quickly, it will take a toll. Just read that example. Principal amount is 20,000 rupees. Time remain invested is 2 years. Interest rate 14%. Determine the total compound interest accrued over the period. Conventionally, what will I do? I will apply amount is equal to principal into 1 plus r by 100 to the power time required. So here 20,000 into 1 plus 14 divided by 100 to the power 2 minus, because I just need to determine the total interest accrued, minus 20,000. That will be the conventional method, but it will take some time. Instead of that, what I will do, next slide. Instead of that, I will just determine the effective interest rate. In first year, interest rate was X. In the next year, interest rate was Y. So so effective interest rate will be X plus Y plus XY by 100. For this problem, X and Y are constant, that is throughout the period, that is 14%. So 14 plus 14 plus 14 into 14 by 100. 14 ka square is 196. So 14 into 14 divided by 100, that is 1.96. Sum is 29.6%. 29.6 of what? Of principal amount. Principal was 20,000 rupees. So 20,000 into 29.6. Don't do it, do that multiplication. Instead of 29.6, just consider it as 30%. So 30% of 20,000. So 3 into 2, that is 6,000. But it is lesser than 6,000. How much lesser? Just 0.4. 0.4% of 20,000 is 8 rupees. So total, so answer will be, so just go back to the just previous slide, please. So answer is A. So just looking at the answers and applying few tricks, you can easily reach out the solution within few seconds. So please, next slide. Yeah, look at this question. Question mark. Question mark square plus 79 square is equal to 172 square minus 88 square minus 8303. Now you have to determine what is there at the place of question mark. If we go by convention, then I have to do is back. I have to do square of 172, then I will subtract 82 square, then minus 8303 minus square of 79. So it will take a lot of time. Instead of that, I will just look at the unitary value of this equation. Just consider the right hand side. 172 square, the unitary place is 2, square of 2 is 4, 4 minus 88 ka square, at unitary place there is 8, square of 8 is 64, just subtract 4 minus 4 means 0, minus 8303, unitary place is 3, so 0 minus 4. On the right side we got 4 minus 4 minus 3, so 4 minus 4 is 0, 0 minus 3, that will not be the answer. So when we subtract, that will become 10 minus 3 means 7. Now look at the left hand side. We need to determine that question mark, square of question mark plus 79 square. If we consider the unitary value, 9 square will become 81, means unitary value is 1. So 1 plus x, anything, x could be anything. 1 plus x is equal to 7. So 1 x must be equal to 6. Now look at the answers. At the first place only it is 86. 86 will be our answer, because square of only two number will give us 6. Either it should be 4, the unitary value of any number should be 4, or it should be 6. So here, to our respite, there is just one number which is having 6 as its unit place. So option is A. So these are few small tricks. Like this question, age of Ram and Sham are in proportion of 7:4. After 5 years, the proportion will become 11:7. Determine the age of Ram. If we go by convention, let us assume age of Ram as X and age of Sham as Y. X by Y is equal to 7 by 4. And so second equation, x plus 5 divided by y plus 5 is equal to 11 by 7. Then we need to solve that using this method. You need to solve these two equations, then we'll get the answer. Instead of that, we can just understand x by y is in the proportion of 7:4. Means x has to be a multiple of 7. Look at the answers. Option A is 12 years, which is not a multiple of 7. We can ignore that answer. Option B is 14 years, which is a multiple of 7. So it could be an answer. Option C, 15 years, it is not a multiple of 7. Just remove that. Option D is 28, which is a multiple of 7. So now we have eliminated 2. Now answer could be either B or D. Now look at the another equation. After 5 years, the proportion has to become 11:7. Means x plus 5 will become a multiple of 11. So now if the answer is 14, 14 plus 5, that is 19, which is not a multiple of 11. Means option B is also eliminated. So we came on just one answer, that is option D. So these are few small tricks which you can do mentally only, without using any pen and paper, and you can reach out to the maximum score possible in your math. With this, I will conclude my quant trick for today. We can take questions if any. if there are any questions. Meanwhile, student post their questions. Anuj sir, just I want to discuss why each and every entrance exam for management education, they have same kind of test.
I didn't get the
Like
question.
if we see,
Yeah.
or in fact, just not just same, they have only aptitude test. Like if we see in JEE, they ask for whatever we are going to taught in IITs, like physics, maths, chemistry, or in case of PMT or CBSE, they NEET exams, they ask for bio, physics, chemistry. But here only one kind of test, that is aptitude, comprise of English and comprehension, DI, and
Because
quants.
Saurabh, that's really what the business world is all about. When you talk about the business world, right? These are the skills that you require. You need to be able to read, you need to be able to communicate, you need to be able to look at data and answer problems, right? And often the data, like I said, is not sufficient data. It is incomplete data. I mean, you're getting data. Maybe you're working in sales, right? You're getting some data from retailers, from wholesalers about the demand of a product. Now, using that sketchy data, that partial data, you have to decide so many things. What advertisement spend is going to be like, right? So, as it is not management is not an exact science. It is not like engineering. It is not like medicine, right? It is also there's also that's why management they say is both an art and a science. No one will say engineering is an art. Engineering is all science. Medical is all science, right? So there you can actually define the boundaries in management. I mean, so when all these management tests are conducted, they're basically looking at if people have those managerial skills, manager like skills. Is he comfortable, with communication? Is he comfortable with ambiguity? Is he comfortable with all these things? So that he can become an ultimate manager. That's what the MBA program does, right? I mean, if you look at our program, that's what we do. We are like a finishing school. We take people with certain skills, managerial skills, and then we provide them more functional knowledge. But now someone who's done a graduation, right, it is not right to check their functional knowledge, right? So if I check them on supply chain, or if we check them on derivatives, it doesn't make sense, right? But what we can check is, do they have those managerial like abilities which would apply in any function?
Sure. So it means no one has get any respite from all these aptitude tests. Let it be CAT, MAT, or even after their PGDM or MBA program, right? So everyone has to take all these things and have to be good at these skills.
Okay, so we don't have any questions, right?
Yeah. So we can
So
conclude, sir.
we can conclude. Just before concluding, I would just like to set the perspective. This is just the first series that we have had on this, right? So this was more an introduction to MAT, what the exam is all about, and what we'll do is subsequently every week we are going to send you a link, you all a link. You can join that link, and we'll be having more focused sessions going forward. So maybe we'll talk about DI in depth, we'll talk about quant in greater depth, right? And maybe the sessions will not be so big also. They'll be just 20, 25, 30 minutes kind of sessions, wherein we'll discuss certain problems and which would be exactly relevant to what you're going to face in the mat. But my submission to all of you once again is, please do register for the mock IBT which is there on the mat site, because that gives you a perspective about what the exam is going to be like. It's not going to be a paper based test or a computer based test this time. So you need to know the ambience, the environment. You need to know your role ambient conditions, right? And you need to set it up accordingly. Like even if we are taking a webinar today, me and Saurabh sir, we have set up the ambience, right? I mean, we have looked at the lighting. We did a demo before this particular thing, right? So that the thing, no faux pas happens here. Similarly, you also need to ensure that when the final performance is there, when you're giving the test, you cannot leave anything to chance. I mean, it should not be that your Wi-Fi is not working that day, or you need to be having backup. What if your Wi-Fi does not work, right? Do you have sufficient data, right, on your mobile so that you can use a hotspot or something, right? So you should be ready for that particular day. Don't leave it for that particular day. Plan in advance. Have a strategy in place. The mat is very easy to master, right? If you do it properly, you should be able to get through. So thank you so much, everyone, right? Looking forward to see you again next week. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Bye.